the special meeting of the Wappinger Town Board to order. May the clerk please call the roll.
Councilman Beal.
Here.
Councilwoman Bettina.
Here.
Councilman Phillips.
Here.
Councilman Casella.
Here.
Supervisor Cavazzini.
Here. In just a moment, I'll ask everyone to join us in rising for the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. That'll be followed by a moment of silent meditation in memory of Pat Lustig, who is a former Recreation Department volunteer. Her and her husband, Bruce, donated many, many years of service to this town, and unfortunately, Patty recently passed away. So we keep her family in our thoughts and prayers at this time. Please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated. All right. With that, I believe that there is one amendment to the agenda, and that is to add a public portion. So with that, do I have a motion to adopt the amenda as amended to reflect including a public portion?
I'll move it. Second.
Moved by Councilman Casella, second by Councilman Phillips. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Thank you very much. Motion passes. Do I have a motion to acknowledge the minutes of November 20th, 2024?
Move.
Second.
Moved by Councilman Beal, second by Councilwoman Bettina. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Just a typo on the agenda, it should be 6 p.m. instead of 7 p.m. for the start time.
Oh, yeah. Thank you very much. At this time, ladies and gentlemen, are there any may I have a motion to open the public portion of the agenda?
So moved. I'll second.
Moved by Councilman Phillips, second by Councilman Casella. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. At this time, residents are able to come up to the podium and address agenda items only. We ask that you state your name and address for the record. Good thing we added one.
Marcy Wagman, Old Troy Road. So good evening. I've been away for a while outside the town for a few weeks, so I wasn't able to closely follow all the discussions regarding the proposed mechanics lift. I was, however, on the field trip on November 2nd, where the supervisor and most of the town board members and the buildings and grounds superintendent reviewed Oakwood Knolls site and the Martz Field site. So I am decidedly not in any way trained or have any experience with mechanics lifts or mechanic shop layouts. I am, however, able to discern when those who do have experience and actually be the ones directly affected by decisions provide sound recommendations and justification for their request. The request to put a mechanics lift at the Oakwood Knolls site will require the least amount of infrastructure prep work and will provide an appropriate workspace. And it was suggested at the field trip by Councilmember Phillips that there is additional space that will allow for expansion of the buildings and work area at the Oakwood Knolls site. So I urge you to support the superintendent's recommendation and fund the lift to be installed at Oakwood Knolls. I also have to add that I do pay attention to aesthetics and visual appeal of sites and believe quite strongly that good aesthetics affect everyone's quality of life, either consciously or subconsciously, and there is good science to back that up. Given that, and while I understand that there's been work done at the Martz Field location to clean up the buildings and grounds work area, and I don't want to minimize the effort that required, I find that site completely appalling and an incredibly bad reflection on the town of Wappinger, and think it is disrespectful to the employees who are working there, the immediate neighbors, and the town residents to have a site in such a state. I also think that such a site so close to an important town recreation area and the residents' homes needs to be shrunk in size and impact, and perhaps transitioning away from using that site as a maintenance area in the future. So, and regarding the use of the ARPA funds to help provide the infrastructure to enable community gatherings, I really implore you as you're making design and aesthetic decisions, to use other parks managed by organizations such as Scenic Hudson, New York State, Locust Grove, as a source of inspiration, in keeping with the goal of improving the quality of life of our residents and connection with our natural world. Don't use Times Square as a source of design inspiration, as the Wappinger School District apparently has. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members of the public wishing to speak?
Good evening, Supervisor Cavazzini and members of the board. I just wanted to ask for your support in accepting the resolution authorizing the purchase of a vehicle lift. And I want to share a story with you because it actually happened today. I met a friend of mine whose son was working on his car. Just today I saw her. He was working on his car. He was using a jack, a regular car jack. The jack slipped and he died. It happened 6 years ago. He was my former student. I went to the funeral, I went to the wake. He was 36 years old, okay? Yes, you can get one for $28,000. It sounds like a lot of money, but you can't replace a life. And you only need one little slip. And whoever is there, I don't care if there's a spotter there, there's not time. And Councilman Beal can probably vouch for this. He's probably has been to emergencies that where people, have had this issue. Please approve this vehicle lift and let's keep our own employees safe. I don't really care where you put it, but they need some safety, and I'm all about safety, as Councilman Beal is. This is something that needs to be done right now as soon as possible. You've gotten the bids. You came up with a resolution. Please, I ask you, I don't want to see another life lost because of this. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mrs. Petrillo. Are there any other members of the public wishing to speak on the agenda? Seeing none, do I have a motion to close the public portion?
Move.
Second.
Moved by Councilman Beal, second by Councilwoman Bettina. All in favor? Aye. Motion passes. Folks, the true purpose of this special meeting here today is to discuss how the town intends to use the remaining American Rescue Plan funds. This is a workshop session for the town board to collaborate amongst each other on a future vision for using these funds on capital improvements throughout the town of Wappinger. Just a little bit as to how we got to where we are today. The American Rescue Plan Act was signed into law on March 11th, 2021. This year, Resolution 2024-49 was passed. Resolution accepting American Rescue Plan funds. This was formally passed to allow the town to accept these funds from the federal government. The American Rescue Plan Act itself states that these funds must be contractually obligated by the town of Wappinger by no later than December 31st, 2024. And then once the contract is executed, the town then has time to then build these projects and go through at the year of 2025, and it must be terminated before 2026. Just getting to where we are today, the town of Wappinger was granted in total $2,267,275.23. This town board this year took great action in allocating over $1.4 million of these funds just this year alone. And as you can see here on the screens, we've reflected that we've purchased new playground equipment at Fleetwood Park, a park that has not seen any improvements in close to 20 years. Castle Point Playground to facilitate a new summer camp program out at that park and also replace nearly 30-year-old equipment at that park. We authorized the construction of a new live performance stage at Brexel Schlotthouse Park. This board finished, after nearly 20 years, the Robinson Lane Baseball Complex Challenger Field, which is home of our Challenger program. And we took great action in getting our departments on the same software when it comes to Tyler Technologies, eliminating silos in this very building and facilitating an amazing technology here in this building. With that, we spent $1,460,922.79 of this gift that was given to us by the federal government. As of today, we have $806,353.44 remaining, which is, again, the purpose of this workshop here. So what you'll see is, as we announced, actually, at the beginning of this year at our inaugural address, members of this town board have gone out, done considerable research, and obtained quotes for various projects throughout the town, and this is what we will be discussing here today. So with that, if you don't mind, I would like to pass out a quote for the Chelsea boat ramp to everyone, which was one of the first projects we announced at the beginning of this year. The Chelsea boat ramp is something that is near and dear to many in this community.
I have it.
And over the past couple decades has seen significant wear and tear from the tidal waters of the Hudson River. When it was initially installed, although well-intentioned, it was paved over with blacktop. And over time, it has been eroded away and then repaved and patched. What the town board was looking to do using these American Rescue Plan funds was do it the right way. Do a solid concrete ramp going down into the Hudson River using a cofferdam and making sure that we have the most longevity for this amazing asset as possible. We were able to meet with the New Hamburg Yacht Club, who just had their boat ramps reconstructed, and we were able to receive some quotes, one of which we passed along here today to the town board, which we feel is the most qualified, and that's by Conco Construction, who completed that work. And I know that Councilman Casella spoke with Acting Supervisor of Buildings and Grounds, Sal Maselli, today. I know Councilman Phillips has been very involved as well, so I want to pass this around here. This is for the proposed amount of $198,000 to reconstruct that ramp.
So I've been talking with Mr. Flynn, the president of Conco. In fact, he asked me if he's on speed dial if we need him tonight.
Fantastic.
And they're set to go. If our planning department wants engineering plans, they will provide them. They're familiar with the New York State permits, as you said. They just did White, or the New Hamburg. So they're just ready to go. And it's about half of what CPL had proposed. So to me, it's a no-brainer. It should just be like, sign it and go. That's my thought on it.
What's everyone's thoughts on this?
This is a no-brainer, in my opinion. I'll yield to the councilwoman for Ward 2 first, so go ahead.
I totally am for this. And thank you for
Fantastic.
your work on this. Very much this is needed, not just for the people in Second Ward, but the entire town. People come all over to use that boat ramp.
Yes, they do.
And you certainly have somebody that's done this work before. Again, as you said, New Hamburg, so that's great news. They know about all the permits and everything that's required, so that's important as well. And again, it's about half the cost from what the original engineering group said. So I totally support this.
Yeah, as far as I'm concerned, if the New Hamburg Yacht Club is the reference on this contractor, then I support it 100%. This is not just a recreational access point, this is a public safety access point. Obviously, that's not usually front of mind, but I can tell you it is part of a number of plans, one of them being the Hudson River Emergency Response Plan, also the Coast Guard Maritime Response Planning Process. This particular access point is a Zodiac access point for inflatable rescue boats. So my position has been we need to do this. kudos to the members that did the homework and found the contractor that just did New Hamburg Yacht Club, because this is cutting the price in half, which is beyond responsible. I think also the fact that we're able to do this using ARPA funds, which are federal monies, I think also speaks to the fact that this is a federally regulated waterway that we're using this for, and I think it's a win-win from all sides here. Honestly, I certainly support this.
Thank you, Councilman.
Councilman Phillips, I'd like to thank you because I know you were very involved in this.
Thank you.
Thank
Also,
you very, very much. Well, the entire team, but thank you.
Sal had
especially.
mentioned that the actual docks need repair.
Yes.
Have we looked into that, or?
He was going to get us a quote. If we can facilitate something by next meeting, we will. And I would like to also thank Assistant Chief Matt Whiting from New Hackensack Fire District, who I had mentioned this to him and his father, who's a member at the New Hamburg Yacht Club, a couple months ago. And his father gave me a call and said, hey, I remember, but you were looking for something down at the boat ramp. So they called me. They put me in touch with Conco. We were able to give Sal his contact information, and Sal has kept Councilman Phillips and I abreast of the situation. But again, this has been a community effort, and I really have to give a shout out to the Whiting family, who remembered me mentioning this in passing, and we were able to hand over a great contractor. So, folks, as the town board gains consensus, as we will not be acting specifically on anything tonight, we will be drafting resolutions for the next regular town board meeting to then authorize these funds. So with that, the Chelsea Boat Ramp reconstruction will be going onto that list. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving right along, the town board was in receipt of a letter from the Sports Museum of Dutchess County Board of Directors in regards to improving the cosmetic appearance of the chapel in the Reese Cultural Center at Carnwath Farms. As we know, right now, we do not have any anticipated plans for 2025 for that space. The Sports Museum has expressed considerable interest, as well as the Friends of Carnwath, as well as the Recreation Department, in utilizing the interior spaces, given the fact that this town board has authorized us to move forward in executing the grant funding, $100,000 in grant funding to do HVAC and plumbing in that space. The Sports Museum and I are asking that we consider the interior cosmetic improvements to the chapel space and some interior spaces to the Reese Cultural Center. As again, it was a request of our tenant. Our acting supervisor, Buildings and Grounds, was able to get a rough estimate of $80,000 to complete that work.
So just a question on that. So we have $100,000 worth of grant money, correct?
Correct.
So we think it's going to be another $80,000 on top of that?
Correct. The $100,000 in grant funding will be spent, as far as I know, based on every quote we've received so far, conversation, on the HVAC. If it comes in differently, that something changes, obviously we can come back to the town board. Again, we are looking to receive permission to, at least get us a budgetary number when moving forward.
And this gets us, so this will get us the water in the building, because that's one of the things they've been asking for a long time. I just want to make sure that whatever we put forward, the $100,000 plus the $80,000, we're going to take care of that. Again, you want to make sure you take care of all the merchandise and everything else, the paraphernalia and everything else that's in that building. There's a lot of sports stuff. I know Tina's uncle's there. You can't afford to lose it. A lot of history there, so I just want to make sure that, again, it's $80,000, and I have no problem spending it, but let's make sure that $80,000 plus the 100 gets
Covers.
everything
Yes.
taken care of. Bathrooms inside the.
That's why we were going on the higher amount too, because as we were talking to folks, again, we're completely roughing in new plumbing, new HVAC, new everything in this building, because in 2016, the pipes broke on the top floor of the Reese Cultural Center and flooded the entire building, ultimately rendering the infrastructure that's there completely useless. So we had to put in, through the $100,000 in grant funding we've received, we're moving forward with the new HVAC and plumbing. Now, again, based on what we've spoken to some contractors is, well, do you want a bathroom?
Yes.
I said, yes, of course we want a bathroom. Well, $100,000 is really going to go into the infrastructure, and we're going to have not a bathroom. So we could get the pipes running to the bathroom, maybe not the fixtures. So doing these interior renovations should cover the restrooms, should cover the cosmetic improvements that they asked for in the chapel. This way, the space and facility can be used and operational.
So the expectation is our Buildings and Grounds is going to do the work?
Right now, the acting supervisor of buildings and grounds is getting quotes from a vendor, mostly to do, let's say, the painting and plaster work in the chapel, as that's 2 stories tall. But then a lot of the interior work, the plumbing, the fixtures, things like that can be performed by our buildings and grounds department.
They can do the plumbing,
They can do the fixtures, like mounting a toilet, that they do here.
but we have to get,
A contractor is going to be
Yes.
doing all the infrastructure.
and we haven't decided who that is yet.
Correct.
And when will we be able to do that?
The acting supervisor told me today that he should have the quotes by the first week of December. One vendor is not getting back to him, and again, he's trying to desperately get the 3.
Well, I don't think we should wait. And if there's another vendor needed, we can go and find another one, because this is paramount. This has to be done.
Absolutely.
So
No,
we originally
And if he needs
had,
help getting another one, I will supply him a vendor.
because we originally had 4 suppliers we're looking at, correct? And
Yes, we're
Yes.
I
down
don't know
to
if we've
3
heard
right
back
now.
from all 4 or not.
Yeah,
So
correct.
do you know, so we put heat in the sports museum, the chapel. Will we be able to add to it?
Yes, so.
That's the question.
What we're going, the way that this is going to be designed is the pump system, heat pump system. So it'll be a mini split that can do heating and air conditioning.
Okay.
The way that this is designed is right now all of the water infrastructure comes in from the ground floor. So obviously we have to heat the ground floor. So the ground floor is home to 2 large community rooms and an industrial kitchen. So that lower level will be serviced by the heat pumps as well as the first floor level for the sports museum there. If at any point in time the town has interested tenants or interested use in the 2nd and 3rd floors, we can always expand upon that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Are we in favor of 80,000?
So I'm in favor of this if we are going to ensure that the Carnwath Chapel will be usable for gatherings.
Yes. That is the intent.
Again, I want to continue to ensure that the money that we're spending brings people together, right?
Yes.
I know some of this is housekeeping stuff too, but I think the theme here is during that 3-year period of everyone being told to stay away from each other, now we're going to use this money to bring people together.
Absolutely. Thank you, Councilman. And that is 100% the intention.
I support it.
Thank you. Okay. Moving right along, folks, to digital signs. Councilman Phillips took the lead on digital signs.
Excuse me.
He supplied all of us with quotes on that.
There's just an error on this.
Okay.
So the installed price is $41,486.
Okay.
That's them doing all the footings and doing the installation.
Okay.
So that brings it to $167,384.
Okay.
So it's off by 12.
Okay.
You're generous on the mason, so that would probably cover it. We'll be close anyway.
Yeah. And I did receive an estimate from the folks that did another monument-based style sign in the town. I know that you are also obtaining one from another local vendor, so as we get them in, if one's better, obviously we're going to run with that. Councilman Phillips did ask me to render some artistic abilities, so I did want to pass out what I was thinking for Schlott House, was keeping with the design that we have today and adding a brick base. In speaking to some of the neighbors out along the Route 9D section in Houstonville for the Louis Deal Trailhead of Reese Park, we had some significant concerns about illuminating people's homes, given the sheer size of what was proposed. I did look around at other village centers, since this is right on the village line. And if you look on the back of the sheet that I gave you, there is a smaller option that has been done as close as town of Esopus, and would be more of a village-friendly looking sign, keeps in line with what we have done throughout the rest of the town. It would be a smaller digital sign, and again, hopefully not impact our neighbors as much. So I just want to pass these around, just get consensus, whatever one thinks.
Yeah, I mean, the sign across the street here is pretty bright.
Yeah, I don't want to do that.
I like it, but there is a brightness control. You can reduce the brightness on these. So if there's a residence within X number of feet, certainly, we wouldn't want it, like, that is bright. I mean,
Yeah, and it's shining into our residents' homes.
So I'd like to see standardized ones if we can. And the reason why I say that is I think that these signs will be an opportunity for us to not only promote town events that are going on at different parks, right? But also, if we have to put something out there like the burn ban, right? If we have to put some public messaging out there that is for public safety purposes, I want it to be big enough that it's going to be effective, right?
Yes.
The burn ban, by the way, still is in existence till November 30th, even though we got rain and snow. But, you know, those are the types of things the public, you'd be amazed how many people don't even know and are burning things. So putting something like that up during times of need or drought, right? You know, conserve water. I think there's an opportunity to put public messaging that is non-recreational at times. So my point in saying this is it needs to be big enough so that that type of messaging can be seen, right?
Of course. What I was thinking, and this was going to get a little further down in my conversation here, but I was proposing 21,000 in new park and facility signage as we're adding, you know, Fleetwood doesn't have a sign. Castle Point, actually, the town of Wappinger got in trouble by the federal government for not having a sign noting it's a donation by the federal government. Friends of Carnwath Express, the Carnwath sign is rotting. The Louis Deal Park doesn't have a sign, so I wanted to pass out these signs here, which match the model of what we have elsewhere in the town. The gateway signs, we just changed them to green.
So green for parks?
Yeah, green for parks.
Yeah.
It also matches, the Schlothouse Park sign is green and gold with white posts. So that's what I was looking at for the parks and facilities. I was totaling 10, and I got a quote from our sign vendor. That's why I put 21,000. That would cover 10 of these parks and facilities. And again, keeping them within the same design. That's why the Reese Park one looks different. I was trying to keep it more so with a village hamlet style
good
and a
point.
park style.
And then, of course, the evolution of these signs was Greenway money back in the day.
Correct.
We've continued this effort since you were 12.
Yes. That's why I got involved.
Although Swarthoutville was spelled differently on two different signs, but that's a different.
We corrected it. We got it.
I think that might have been my fault. But that said, I firmly believe that branding and signage for our town parks is important, just like our hamlets. I would certainly support any effort to expand upon that program, but also we need to circle back on a couple of them because, you know, they're getting a little aged.
Yes.
Well, the other thing is, you can put the signage from here.
Yes.
You log into it and you can. put
Yes.
the
As long as you have
messages up there.
Wi-Fi, you can do it.
I also noticed, when they first went up at Ketchum, all I saw was block lettering. I was
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
well, that's a waste of time.
Right.
But somebody learned how to do it.
Well, it took time for them to figure out how to, I mean, it does take time to learn how to
There's full
program.
graphics, and like you said, you
Yeah.
can make it as bold as you want.
Sure.
So
We're
that's-
going to designate Chris to do that.
No, me.
We have a good team here in town hall that can
So
definitely.
one other correction on here for the electric.
Yep.
Electric is coming in at $40,411, so about $4,000 less. Keep in mind with the electric quotes we have here, we are required to do the digging and marking out, so that would be something our buildings and grounds would have to do. The hardest service to do is really the one on 9D. Will be probably the most difficult, that's the most expensive at the Louis Deal Park, but also the one at Town Hall. It's going to be very difficult to do as well because there's a lot of shale out there. So they have to go basically from the panel by the gazebo and run the wires from the gazebo over to the Town Hall sign. So that'll be expensive as well. But those are the two biggest expenses out of the whole thing. But I think our team here that's looking to do this, Field Electric, is going to be able to take care of it. But again, it's a little bit less. It's $40,411 on that. So if you want to decrease it and save some money or whatever the bottom line looks like, but it looks like we're going to save a little bit of money.
So, Councilman Phillips, you noted a change. Councilman Casella, you noted a change. What is the total that you folks are seeing? This way we know we got the right.
Between the two of those?
Yeah, the total for all the signs that are being proposed.
231,795.
231,795.
Yeah,
And you had the 24?
yeah,
Yeah, if you had the 24 too, yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
231,795.
That sounds familiar.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much, and everyone is in favor of passing those along? And the designs? Okay. And
Well, we
we're-
want to make sure, right, don't you have a second person coming in to do design work for that, the base? Chris?
Yeah, he's getting a quote.
Yeah, we're working on that.
Yeah, this is just authorizing the concept, the funds, and...
What I worry about is that, will the quotes be different, but that's okay.
It's going to be a little bit different, but I think the ballpark numbers are close.
Okay.
Because if the vendor that I happen to get is lower, or Chris, whatever it may be, we can
We're
obviously go-
looking at like 3 different vendors for masonry because we know how that goes.
Yes. Yes. And again, just trying to, get a ballpark figure. Obviously, at the next regular meeting, we'll have the resolutions with the actual numbers, what we're looking at. And then I had noted the $21,000 for town park and facility signs as I passed around. I believe Councilman Beal had shared some support for that. Are we in favor of that as well?
Sure.
Yeah, I'm all for that.
Okay, perfect.
Can we share our masonry numbers with the school district?
I would love to.
Because that's what that needs over there.
Yes, it needs to be in compliance with the town's Greenway Compact and Comprehensive Plan, in my opinion.
We'll get there. We'll get there.
Someday. Okay, I am going to ask Director Jessica Fulton to come up to the podium. She had supplied me this afternoon 2 quotes for the Reese Park Louis Deal Trailhead Pavilion and a Castle Point Park Pavilion. Jessica, how about you start with Castle Point Park? Based on our conversation today, you were saying to basically double in site work and concrete, so I had added in front of the town board here $40,000 for concrete and site work.
That sounds about right. What I didn't get back from the vendor was if that is the pricing for having it contracted out or whether that's the estimated price of us doing it ourselves. In a perfect world, that's the price of it being contracted out, and then we don't have to do any of that kind of work ourselves. So for Castle Point, we're talking a 30 by 60 pavilion, which with wiggle room could fit 144 kids, and if we literally go to our capacity there, it would be 180. It is smaller than the Martz Pavilion. The Martz Pavilion is excessively large.
40 by 85.
Yeah,
Yeah, it cost a lot of money.
yeah, that was over a $250,000 pavilion.
Should have never been that high.
So that one is for Castle Point. Now, this is a literal basic pavilion kit. It's from Cedar Forest Products, a company with a very good reputation. Lior Kushner, who worked with us on Spook Hill, is a representative of Parkitects, and he must be very good at his job because every time I go to work with a different company, they refer me back to Parkitects, and I end up in Lior's hands again. So that is the estimate for that at Castle Point.
Can I ask a question, please?
Yes,
So parking.
yes,
So we're only talking about, adding to the pavilion. What
correct.
about parking, moving the fences in? Have we looked at that at all? Because that's going to be in addition to this.
Correct. So I've been speaking with Larry about that. I don't know how well we can visualize right now Castle Point, but if you can, in your mind, take where the fence is on the right, okay, as you're pulling in, there's a fence on the right. Larry, we have to look into some septic tank things, but picture that fence coming back and actually being closer to the road, okay? Which then creates a parking area to the right inside of the park. Not past the pavilion. The Board of Health, not a fan of any kind of traffic going through that park during camp operational hours, but a small parking lot to the right inside of the fence.
How small is small?
Well, considering at Martz right now, we usually only have like between 6 to 10 operational parking spots. It actually is more. So he was figuring about 12 parking spots.
And a safer entrance to the park and exit right now. And Director Fulton and I did a little field trip out to the park the other day, and it was a pretty close call as you were backing out as someone was flying over the hill.
I was hoping you didn't notice that.
Yep, and again, the idea is to obviously get people into the park there. There would be a little parking area. Also, just to remind folks, Castle Point Park used to be a huge destination when it came to playing softball, having softball games there. And folks, when eventually we start to do that after when it's not during summer camp hours, you can park in the lower fields in the back there.
Yeah.
And so there's plenty of parking.
Correct, and in talking
That's a
with the...
long haul down there, though.
Well, when you're doing a softball game, it's right there, things like that.
Yeah,
I played
and
softball there before, so I know.
when we had talked to the Board of Health, I actually spoke to them about making staff park all the way down in the back. They're young kids, they can make it up there. So we would have staff parking all the way in the back so it didn't interfere with parent parking for pickup.
So it's going to be a regular parking lot. It's not going to be millings, et cetera. We're going to make sure that's all engineered, et cetera.
We were going to do millings like we're doing at Spook Hill Park.
Honestly, it doesn't need to be paved.
So
It's,
You're going to have to do a lot of work to it, though, because it's untouched ground. So you have to dig it up, you have to put in a lot of gravel, and then put a binder top and then a top coat on it. So it's going to be expensive, just so you know.
yes.
Very expensive.
At this point, grass is even acceptable to a certain extent for the camp parents. They'll kill that grass off in no time.
And again, camp parents are not staying more than a handful of minutes anyway. They're walking their kids in.
Yeah.
You know, so again, just to kind of put it in perspective too,
Also,
especially.
you need parking. I mean, you just put in a $167,000 playground.
Yes.
You want people to have access to that.
Absolutely.
Correct.
So you're going to have to put in parking.
Yeah.
Correct. And you can park alongside the road. Like when the park is open, when people do rentals and things like that, they park along the side of the road. When camps, I mean, the road in the park, not the River Road. When camp's not operational, there are more options for traffic flow inside of that park. The moving vehicle issue is primarily when we're in our operational hours of camp. They want us to be very careful about how many cars, if any, are going through there when there's children. So outside of that, there's other options for parking during like general public use.
So when do we expect our engineer to have the plans so we can make
Yeah.
sure $85,000 covers it?
So that I have to, one, check with Leor to make sure that that is like the contracted estimate, not the do-it-ourselves estimate. And then we would decide whether we want to go with the contracted estimate or the do-it-ourselves estimate. This is a kit, so the engineering and everything has already been done for this. It comes with the information, the plans, the specs, all that kind of stuff.
And one thing I'd like to piggyback off of this too is Director Fulton was telling me that Castle Point is very popular right now with rentals. A lot of family gatherings and parties happen up at that pavilion. Moving forward this year, I've already explained to the department, we'd like to see more facility rentals and more families utilizing our parks, which is obviously more revenue. But again, utilizing an expanded pavilion like this with Hudson River views and now renovated restrooms, thanks to our Buildings and Grounds Department and a new playground, this should be quite the park.
When you look at how often Martz gets rented and what it gets rented for versus how often Castle Point gets rented and what it gets rented for, having these facilities upgraded could be an absolute game changer. Martz is rented almost every weekend, sometimes both days of the weekend. Castle Point, first of all, we would amend the fees for Castle Point to come in line with a park like Martz. And right now, it's sparse and it's more adult-oriented parties, your bridal showers and things like that, where people want to have cocktails overlooking the river. So we'd bring it more in line with the kind of events that people are holding at the other park.
All the more reason to make sure the parking lot is ready and
Exactly,
available.
yes.
Exactly.
Okay.
And the traffic flow.
Where are you going to put
Yeah.
the pavilion?
At its existing site.
Oh, so you're
But
going to take down
bigger.
the one that's there now?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the footprint's bigger. We couldn't really go any bigger than this because that would be some pretty extensive site work. It does drop off. We would have to do some grading to expand the footprint, but we don't want to go too far where it starts sloping downhill. And then the second one on there is estimate for, the supervisor asked me to get one for the trailhead at Reese Park. I will admit, I would actually like to do something smaller than what's on here, because having a large pavilion on 9D that is very, very plain looking, I don't think is as beneficial to the look of that park as to have something that's smaller, but prettier, for
So-
a lack of better description.
Councilman Beal and I did a field trip this weekend and, measured the overall square footage of what a big pavilion could be. We can fit a 30 by 50 pavilion if we so choose. Obviously, that's the price that we put down here. Jessica is providing us with a more decorative, slightly smaller pavilion that would match the aesthetics of the neighborhood. There's a historical barn on the property line. You're entering the village, obviously, so we wanted to be a little more rustic and keep in line with the character of the area. So Jessica is
I have
going
to
to
get
get
back
us
to you on that, yeah.
that number, which will be considerably less than this, all right? Or
I wouldn't
portion
go with
less.
considerably less. Nothing is
Portion
ever
less.
considerably less.
Well, the
but-
concrete costs 40 grand. I mean,
Yeah.
that's about as much as the pavilion does, so.
Correct.
I'm all for, we walked it, we measured it just to see what would look proportional to the open space. That doesn't mean that we have to be 30 by 50. I mean, it could be 30 by 30. It could be, give me some options to take a look at. The idea was here to really create a true trailhead, right? So my thought was having a pavilion there so that if we were to have greenway hikes and things like
Yeah.
that, there'd be an area to go at the conclusion or before it started. Putting a kiosk in place there in the park we talked about. There's one right now located at the right-of-way at the corner of 9D and the town easement there. I think we'd rather look towards a newer kiosk for that.
Yeah.
We also looked at the sidewalk that ends in the village. At extending that, it'd be a 100-foot extension. It's actually exactly 100 feet from where the sidewalk ends to where this would, where it could go to. And these are not necessarily ARPA expenses, but these are expenses I think that we're going to be looking at moving forward, probably B-fund expenses to essentially connect this property to the village. We want it to be a connected park, bringing village residents into the town and vice versa, right? So I was very impressed with the work that was done by, who did that?
It was a combination of myself and our trailheads, trail wardens.
Who ran all that, who ran that trail down there?
I marked it out and basically I marked it out, cut off everything back, and then our trail wardens went back there and actually bushwhacked it. And
Took care of the leaves, yeah.
yeah, they took care of the
Okay.
leaves and cut additional stuff back.
I mean, basically, the
And
last
the
time,
blazes.
last time we were back there, Joey, I don't even remember when that was.
When we purchased the property.
We were back there in the woods looking for the pins for the property line and looking for the boundaries for the village and the town boundaries, which we found. And the way that this naturally now, basically naturally works its way into the existing trail is pretty impressive.
Yes. It meets up nearly perfectly with the former bridge site.
Yeah.
Which, an update for the board, we were able to track down a grant that was awarded to the town of Wappinger in 2021 from the Hudson River Valley Greenway, State Greenway. And we started conversations with Greenway, and they've authorized us to continue to have the grant, which is 70-some-odd thousand. We got a updated quote, and we can continue to move forward with expediting and using that grant and getting that bridge back in order. So
Yeah.
it looks like everything is really going to come together for 2025 with this park here.
What I would like to do, though, before December 31st at 11:59 PM is have a conceptual dedication on site there, just so that folks know what we're doing. We can put some big photos up and conceptual drawings and things like that at some point between now and the end of the year, just because we're starting this project. Well, we started it when we bought the property, but now the next phase is beginning in 2024. I want to mark time there as we move forward in 25. It's really a game changer for access to Reese Park. The way I look at this is Reese Park East, basically, as compared to the Reese Park on the other side. So I think it's something that we need to take a moment to recognize and bring the family members out who are responsible for us having this property. So that said, I think the only ARPA funding needed for the Lewis Deal Trailhead at Reese Park is just the pavilion. So just
Correct.
If you can just circle back on a couple different designs so that before it hits the resolution on the dais, we can gain consensus and make sure we're good to go on that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, we're also, of course, working with companies that are on state bids so that we can expedite this process. The company Cedar Forest Products, they have a lot of really nice looking pavilions, but once you get up into this size, you're talking a plain stick pavilion, so
Yeah,
scaling
bring
it
in.
down is gonna.
That's fine. We have an historic barn on the
Yeah.
south side, as Joey said, so we want to be consistent architecturally if we can.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay. So Jessica's going to get us the updated numbers for Reese Park, but otherwise, is everyone comfortable with Castle Point?
Oh, by the way, just for the record, we did discuss putting a playground there. So my wife basically said, you don't want to put a playground right there.
I was gonna let her tell you,
There's
you know?
19,000 cars a day right there, so it
Yeah.
sounded like a good idea, but it's really not a good idea. It's too close to that roadway, and you could fence it in, it's just too close.
Yeah.
You can't have kids getting out of cars and going, it's just not going to work. So shout out to my wife for talking sense into me. So we're going to put a pavilion there because that's the better use.
Exactly.
But you
That
still
keeps
owe
them
me a
all.
playground.
Yes, which I went
Tell me
around
where you want.
to Indian Village, the Indian Village site.
We'll talk.
Tall trees, so you have options.
He's just trying to tell you he wants that other place.
He wants a playground.
He wants a place, just not there.
It's got to be the right place, and I
It
have a
does.
couple ideas. It's not going to be ARPA, but I know I can count on your support.
Yes. All
I
right,
don't know about that.
all right. Thank you, Director Fulton. We appreciate your time on this. Moving right along, we've been speaking throughout this year, obviously, about getting the Buildings and Grounds Department really up to spec. It's a department that really is crucial to the day-to-day operations of this town, not only with our parks, but the actual operations and management and maintenance of all town facilities and properties. When I took office, my first week, I was horrified to have to pull several vehicles off the road that were the Buildings and Grounds Department's vehicles. Within my first week, I was seeing vehicles shaking and brakes not working. And since and again, thank you to my colleagues on the town board for hiring our new mechanic in that department, we've been able to get a solid working fleet out of what we have. But what is presented to us tonight from our acting supervisor of Buildings and Grounds is our quotes.
Thank you.
I'll take one. Our quotes from Ford for the purchase of 4 vehicles. A total of 3 vans, 2 have a little more additions, bells and whistles to it than 1, and then a standard F-250 pickup truck. The department would not be asking if they absolutely did not need this, and that was a total of $199,110.05. This is a little different than our conversations on the highway vehicles. The highway department has a solid amount in this year's budget that they're able to purchase vehicles this year, which hopefully we can execute on. And I believe we have consensus to do so. The Buildings and Grounds Department does not necessarily have that same luxury. So we wanted to present this to the town board as an option.
So we've had a number of conversations with the acting director of Buildings and Grounds, and we've, taken a look at the vehicles, and the vehicles are really in disrepair. We've had the mechanic from the highway department take a look at the vehicles as well. They basically have 6 months or less on some of them, so this is the opportunity, to go ahead and purchase these 4 vehicles, get the safety vehicles out on the roads today, and really help out the Buildings and Grounds team. They're out there driving around town all the time, fixing different projects, things like that. And it's important they drive in safe vehicles. So certainly, I do support this. I do think the dollar amount's going to change a little bit, though. The gross amount is $212,405 before the discount, so it'll probably end up around $204. We can true it up later on, but it's in that ballpark for $199,000. But again, we've met with the acting director, and it's something that we really need to do as a town. We've seen some of the vehicles that they drive today that they really had to take off the road. We've used our mechanics up at the highway department, and they're saying, you can't repair these things anymore. So again, safety issue, we need to make sure our employees are safe here, and so that's what we want to do, and I wholly support this.
Fantastic. Thank you. Any comments?
No, I agree. Again, I was up at the Highway Department this morning, and John actually inspected the last vehicle.
Yeah.
It's on the road.
Yeah.
He said, if you're buying anything tonight, buy them trucks.
Yes.
So I wholeheartedly agree. And I would suggest we get on it as soon as possible, as vehicles are going out the door
Yes.
quicker than they can't keep them. So I would entertain a resolution on the floor, actually. That's how quick I think they should have.
We can get those today and have them here in the next 2
Yeah,
weeks.
I mean,
So if we so
as long
choose
as
to
we
do
can
that,
do
we
that.
can.
Okay.
So just question, these are all the same color, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
They will be identified with town seals that indicate which department they're from, right?
Correct.
And everything will be standardized. From a procurement standpoint, I imagine these are
State bid.
state
State
bid,
bid.
right? So,
Yes.
And also, we were able to work out an agreement. I have to give a special shout out to the acting supervisor and our mechanic. They were able to negotiate with Ford that basically after the lifetime of these vehicles have been expended, perhaps it's 3 years, they can go back, turn these in and get vehicles, at a good rate. We can continue to have an upgraded maintenance schedule going on these vehicles here this way. We're not allowing anything to rot. So we would actually probably get half the value of these vehicles today back, and then we would be able to apply that to the cost of a new vehicle and keep things moving.
But we really need to start working on a capital project, though, that says, you need to replenish vehicles. We don't do that today. We always kind of react, and we need to be more proactive, or we go out there, as they do that highway, and they're pretty expensive, as we're going to talk about later on. But also, these vehicles are an average around $50,000 a pop. So, again, this is something we need to take a look at, as we've always talked about, a 3 to 5 year capital plan. So, again, we're not reactive, we're proactive here.
Absolutely.
yeah, I support this.
Okay, thank you.
I do too.
Okay, and that should zero out ARPA funds.
More than zeros out ARPA funds. We're slightly
Yes.
over.
Yes, we're slightly over, which obviously we would ask that the town board consider applying B fund balance to, covering the cost of these vehicles.
I would have no problem.
Well, once we get the update from Jessica, right, the other Jessica, not this one, on the Reese Park Pavilion, that'll save a little bit of money. Right now, we're around $877,000 versus $806 to spend.
Correct.
So we've got to cover about $71,000 still. Again, some of that will be a reduction of Reese Park and, again, B fund balance. But these are all important things we need to take care of.
So
I support that.
to take action tonight on the buildings and grounds vehicles, we can obviously, I'd like to provide the town clerk with this here, if you could. We can make a floor vote. I'd like to ask legal counsel, since this is ARPA funds, do we need to have a resolution for this, or the floor vote is fine, and then obviously we then have the contract?
We could write up, you guys can do it orally, we could write that up.
Okay, I can write that, we can write that up tomorrow.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, so with that, I would like to make a motion to authorize purchasing 4 vehicles for buildings and grounds.
Up to $212,000, just to cover everything. I'll second that.
Beautiful. Second by Councilman Casella. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much, folks. Okay.
So the rest of these expenses that are on the bottom half of this page will be provided as resolutions for each one, is that correct?
Correct.
Yes.
All right.
I would suggest you ask Kevin Bohannon, he's our resident cement extra. That's, I think we're going to be a little short, because I did the calculation. It's a lot of concrete for that slab.
Yeah.
So just ask him to give us a better quote.
We can definitely do that.
Yeah.
And again, that was just based off of preliminary numbers from the Recreation Department, so
Yeah.
we'll definitely tighten that up. Thank you. Thank you, folks. So that concludes our discussion on ARPA funds. I know that we were going to be discussing a few issues with the Highway Department, our amazing mechanics up at the Highway Department who do a fantastic job servicing a huge fleet, what I argue is the best fleet in Dutchess County for Highway Department. They do a great job. They had sent over an email for the potential purchase of 4 vehicles. Most importantly, they're looking at 2 plow trucks at the total of $315,000 each. Our two mechanics up at the Highway Department do a great job keeping these vehicles alive and working as long as possible. I've been up there personally. I know that my colleagues have too, and they've taken entire cabs and bodies of these trucks apart, sanded them down, repainted them, and add an extra 5 to 10 years to the lifespan of these trucks. So when our mechanics come to us and say, it's time, it's typically time. Councilman Phillips, I don't know if you'd like to take the lead, but what we were looking to do was fund majority of this out of this year's budget.
They have the two plow trucks. They're both replacing 2005 trucks. There's one that looks brand new. It's rotting out. It's got a double frame. The frame's starting to bow out, and they're getting to be, they're not unsafe because he wouldn't put it on the road, but they're at their end point. So with those two, and then they're looking for two plow pickup trucks. One's a service truck and one's another truck. The highway superintendent doesn't want to give up his truck. It's got 100,000 miles on it.
Yeah.
But he likes it, so that's all good. So those four, I don't know if he gave you a price. They come out to $773.
Yep.
I believe we have 8. What do we have, Jessica? 8.
We have a rent.
850, 860 to spend in DB.
It's looking that way. As of right now.
Right. So
Again, we still have quite a bit more. We have
with those four, we're at 773, and then we were looking to buy a speed trailer, but we have
There's a separate line item.
a separate equipment line for that.
Correct.
So just to put in perspective, right now, as we talked about, there's $800,000 left. We have 5 pay periods to go in the highway department. We do have some money that we can pull out of there, I believe $100,000 out of payroll. We can then pull 324 out of salt, since the highway superintendent already bought next year's salt, took care of that. So we can fund there. And then I would also like to note that sales tax has not come in yet. That's a considerable amount. And interest and earnings total has not come in yet. Just to put it in perspective, again, last year, the town board put in $271,000 back into fund balance. We're anticipating more this year. Basically what we're looking for is authorization to work with the highway department, move forward with executing these from a budgetary perspective internally. If we need to come back to the town board for a budget transfer, we want to make sure that the town board is comfortable with that.
Also, as you know, John sent us over quotes for Western Star trucks, which it's a Cadillac of trucks. So they want to keep the price the same.
Yeah, we have international.
They want to go with international, so the pricing should come in a little bit lower. So I'm in favor of you guys ordering. We have till the end of the year to keep it within this year's purchasing. So between those and the speed trailer, which ours is kept together with Band-Aids.
It's old.
So the one we have today lasts about a day. The charger doesn't work. I've had it out there at Regency Drive a number of times, and it's died the next day. So we certainly need it. It's 20-plus years old. It's $18,500. I think we have a line item on the budget, 5130-200, where there's $28,800 left. So I think we can use that to apply the 18.5 against that. I'd also like to suggest, though, out of DB fund balance, instead of having just one, maybe you get a secondary, because you got a whole town you got to cover.
Yeah, and I would like, and Councilman Beal would appreciate this, because it might take the words out of your mouth. These are matching what the county has.
Yeah.
What
That's what I was
we've
gonna say.
deployed on Osborne Hill Road, Chelsea Road, Pine
Yeah.
Lane, Myers Corners. These are matching that, so this collects raw data, folks, of actual traffic counts, speeds, license plate. I mean, it gets you everything.
Hold up, not LPRs. You got, that's a separate whole thing. There's no surveillance. There's a whole thing with that.
won't
So
disclose that.
you're not collecting license plate information, but you are monitoring trends in speeding and other things like that. But it's important that the platforms that are used from a software perspective are consistent with the existing sheriff's office assets, right? So
Yes.
my recommendation would be to use the same vendor or use the same brand platform, whether it be, and there's a couple that are used out there. Let's be consistent with what the sheriff's office is using so that we can use the same platform all around the town, right? There's one on Osborne Hill Road right now.
Yes.
Yeah, I support that. The other thing I'll say real quick is we had talked a couple years ago about buying the smaller ones that we can mount.
So I totaled those out. We can buy 5 this year with the amount budgeted, and I just have to ask the comptroller if she'd like it to be credit card or a voucher system, which I already know the answer, so.
Okay, yeah, so,
We have those that will be purchased this year, and then we'll buy 5 more next year. So we'll be looking at 10 of those going out.
so those are solar powered. They are basically reminding you of what the speed limit is and reminding you of what you're traveling. And you can put thank you on it if you want.
Yes.
Or slow down.
They did go to the same vendor.
No, but we're not.
It's the same vendors that the county uses.
Same vendor, okay. So we're not using these for any type of surveillance purposes because there is a significant debate out there about the application and use of some of these assets, and this town is not doing that.
What we're looking to do, again, is obtain the real data. This way, we can obviously plan the town accordingly and, of course, rely this information to our residents. We are obviously seeing increased traffic and speeding throughout the town. These pieces of equipment obviously provide the town with amazing data that we're able to use, provide to residents, and actually utilize in day-to-day planning here in this town. So definitely great assets.
That's also how we target our patrols, based on the data that's collected on these tools.
Nothing's arbitrary.
Right, so a cop in a car is always better than a sign on the side of the road. And people often ask, why is there a sign on the side of the road? Well, we're collecting data in various locations to know where we need to place the cop in the car. So I support this. It's really for public safety purposes primarily, and I certainly would support this expense.
And the permanent ones that we also talked about going out to 5 and then to 5 next year, they also have cloud data as well, so we can obtain that information, and those will be permanently located. And, each town board member and I have supplied a list, so those will go out. Hopefully Highway will hang them. So those will be permanently located, so we'll always have that data coming through. So then this speed trailer will always be moving around the town as well. So I'm a huge advocate and fan of information, and this is going to be huge for us. Okay. I don't think that we need to have any action here. We will move forward, and we will notify the town board if we need to take any,
Just
budget transfer action.
one question I had, and Chris mentioned this before. What year were the trucks that are being replaced?
2005.
Okay, yeah, so back to Al's point, we're going to have to look at some sort of equipment replacement plan, and I know it's easy to say, and capital planning is very challenging for elected officials that are in 2-year terms, because I've said this before, when you're doing a 5-year strategic plan or a capital plan that's 5+ years, it's difficult to do that when you have to run for office 2.5 times during that 5-year period. So that said, in the fire department, basically that's how the fire department operates with respect to replacing apparatus, whether it be a 10 or a 15-year replacement plan based on the length of the bond and based on the use of the asset. So I agree with your methodology and look forward to further discussions.
Well, one of the things I think people should understand is we budget for a winter, right? So when we have a very mild winter like we did last year, we will have surplus funds. And again, you can't count on that, but when it happens, then you can buy some equipment with it. So, plus two, they're very frugal at the highway department. They would rather fix it than buy something new. So the town is very, very fortunate. And I can only put in a plug. John mentioned I could use a truck wash. So I'm just saying.
Yes.
Yeah, well, getting the salt off the vehicles is important, right?
It is.
And then you have to have a retention now
Yes.
under the standards of today, right?
But again, you're looking at a 10 or 15-year, savings program. So it's long-term, but something to keep in the back of your mind, because I know you like to build, Bill.
Yeah, sure, right.
All right. Any further discussions under ARPA or other capital improvements? We do have one resolution following this, but any other discussion? Okay, seeing none. Thank you very much, folks, and we will start getting these resolutions cranked up for the next meeting. Next on our agenda is Resolution 2024-210. This was a tabled resolution authorizing purchase of vehicle lift for the Buildings and Grounds Department. Do I have a motion for discussion?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilman Phillips, second by Councilman Casella. For discussion, again, as we also heard tonight from residents that participated on that field trip, which I appreciate everyone coming to. That was a great, great day. Our Buildings and Grounds Department has operated with whatever they have been able to over the past couple years, especially when that department was eliminated and had to be rebuilt. Right now, our mechanic has expressed the significant need of safety for a lift in that building. I know that it has been expressed by members of this board that they support a lift, and it was a matter of location. Again, I would like to remind everyone that the Oakwood Knolls location was more cost-effective for the town in terms of capital improvements and potential expansion, and getting it out of the way of being in a town park. When vehicles and equipment break down currently, the mechanic goes into the park as it stands right now and trailers it back or services it on-site in the park. Again, we're not looking to move everyone there. The mechanic and the maintenance mechanics currently to that site. Grounds crew would stay as of right now at Martz Field until we can obviously talk about a potential centralization project. But the idea, again, folks, is not to have the operations of a maintenance department out and about in one of our beautiful and most active parks. Right now, this is highly visible for those picnicking, playing tennis, and obviously our summer camp. So if we were able to relocate the administration of the Buildings and Grounds Department to a centrally located facility, which we received a considerable amount of support that day from board members and residents and the department head, I think that would be the best bet for the town.
So I'm in favor of getting a lift. My problem is, to Marcy's point, the barn is, how do you describe it? It's a tin can that's not worthy of working, and I don't think Oakwood Knolls is that far behind it. That's my concern. Neither location, both locations need upgrades. So I think we need to, we do little things and we don't look at the big picture. I joked and Bill had a heart attack about putting a 4060 building up somewhere, but they need a new facility is what they need. So I don't know the answer.
Would the town board be comfortable with purchasing this lift this way? The cost does not go up, especially after the new year. And then we can continue to have ongoing conversations about the location and a building. We can get real numbers for a building. We can get a real location. Right now, again, this was done to try to save the town as much money as possible, considering the upgrades that would be needed at the barn to just have something there for now. But obviously, if we're looking at, which I love to hear, a new facility, I would ask that the town board consider adopting this resolution tonight, and then with the contingent that we would work on finding a new permanent location or facility for the Buildings and Grounds Department.
I'm all for the mechanics. To me, you can't spend enough money for them, so I have no problem with that. I just have a problem with both buildings, really, quite honestly.
I agree with you. Safety is paramount, and I'm sorry to hear what happened to the person that you had mentioned, and I'm sorry, I've heard that happening to other people also. So I agree with the lift. However, I think there needs to be discussion on where it goes. So in cost restraints, I think this would be good. That we move, all right, go on.
That we move. Are you comfortable with that? Sorry.
Yes.
Okay. Sorry, Councilor.
So I also support the lift, but again, I have a problem with the location of it. Right now, we have an estimate now for the electric for the barn. We're looking for an estimate from Sal for the cement floor that we could put in. I think it's just a bigger, better facility. You have everybody gathering all in one spot in the morning. Then you can go out and give them their orders to go do the work. But again, I think it's centrally located. It's cleaned up quite a bit from where it was before. It's not the perfect spot. I would actually support a new building, but if we're going to do something now, for the time being, I would support, again, I support it, just the location, and I prefer the barn.
And again, we're not approving a location here tonight, and we are, and I appreciate you getting an estimate for upgrading the electric at the barn, but I would not even go that far. I would authorize the department to, as it says right here, purchase the lift this way we're locked in at that price, contingent on whether we're doing a new facility or not. That would be the next step, not doing any improvements to that barn or either location until we actually have a game plan for a location. I support what Councilman Phillips has said with potentially buying a prefab building. I think that would be the best course of action. If we're going to do it, we have to do it right, and I'd hate to...
I understand that comes with a cost, though, right? Significant cost. You're probably looking $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 for that building by the time you put heat and everything else in that building. So it's not just the frame itself, it's all the other stuff, as you noticed when we did the highway garage.
Yeah.
There wasn't just the frame itself, it's all the other stuff that goes along
We're
with
able
it.
to
So
save a considerable amount of money by doing a lot of work in-house with the highway department as well. Just putting that in perspective as well.
So I think the lift is agreeable.
Yeah, if you don't buy it, prices are going to go up. And so,
Exactly.
say you wait till next April, you'll spend a couple of $1,000s more easy on something. So
And I think we
it
can
makes
have-
sense to pay for it now.
And have future discussions on where it goes down the road.
So we're buying a lift and we don't know where we're going to put it?
Not at this point. We
I don't know how that's a responsible thing to do. We're going to buy the lift, but we can't come to a consensus on where the lift's going to go.
Have you been over there to the
He
barn?
did not,
lately?
Yeah, I've been there. I mean, there's structural integrity issues there, in my opinion. There's also structural integrity issues at the other location,
Correct.
you know. But we're going to buy a lift that we can't agree to put into either building. That, to me, doesn't make sense. That's putting the cart before the horse. Why are we buying a lift? I don't understand why we're buying a lift when we don't have a building that can facilitate it.
Again, the department head and the mechanic both felt that the Oakwood Knolls site was adequate, both with the footings for the concrete and with electrical capacity. They felt that they could do interior renovations and it would be accommodating for what they need. That was their recommendation. I take the recommendations of our department heads as are the professionals.
Right, but we represent the taxpayers.
Of course.
So is this a responsible purchase for the taxpayers to spend $30,000 on a lift when we don't have a place to put it? That is not a responsible thing to do. I understand people have opinions, and I understand that people have, positions on this, but ultimately, we have to look at this from 30,000 feet and say, are we going to spend $30,000 to buy a lift when we don't have a building to put it in? That is crazy. That's crazy to me.
No, but
We do not have a building, ma'am, that is sufficient. That building cannot be used for this lift at this time. There has to be structural changes made to that building. There are way too many questions. If we're going to spend $200,000-$300,000 to modify a building to save $2,000 on a $30,000 lift, that makes no sense to me.
And that's not accurate either. It was more so appropriate for the barn to spend that kind of money.
Right, that's what I was referring to.
I was going to say, the Oakwood Knolls site, when we had that field trip, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the only expense that the acting supervisor of buildings and grounds said would be labor. They would be taking down one wall inside, it's not a structural wall, to increase the footprint inside, and we would just be paying for the labor cost of our employees. The material would be brought to our recycle center, which is our property.
Right.
And-
Who's doing
and
the engineering on this work?
There was no need for engineering.
I disagree. There certainly is engineering work
The
needed.
roof
You're not
looks,
taking any walls down in a building, in a town building, without any sort of engineering work. So you're
We
talking.
did that next door at the emergency services
Right,
building.
that's a totally different situation there.
Well, we took-
I'm
we took
sorry.
walls down.
I do not think it's responsible to spend $30,000 on a lift when we do not even have a plan to put it into any particular building. You show me a plan that's going to work, I'll support the purchase. Until then, it's not a responsible purchase. That's my opinion.
But I would like to remind everyone again, there was a proposal made by the acting supervisor of the department when we're in
That's
justice court.
with all due respect, Joey, he wants a lift. I get that. There are employees that want things. It's our responsibility to vet those
He gave a
requests.
presentation.
I
Bill.
agree. I understand that.
He did. He gave a presentation. He explained that was his
That's his
preferred
position,
site.
right.
Yeah.
That's his
So that was,
position.
what more of a presentation would you?
I want to see engineering drawings. I want to see a plan for this. Ma'am,
It's not a public portion.
with all due respect,
Yeah.
we don't have the ability, people don't just talk off the floor here.
No,
With
no,
all due
there's-
respect,
no,
that's
no.
not how it works. With all due respect, I don't have any plans in front of me that give me any level of confidence that this lift can work in either of those two buildings. Therefore, how can I support a $30,000 expenditure?
So you would like you would, excuse me, so you would like the town engineer, who is not present at the field trip, to perform some sort of evaluation?
We have to have plans. We can't just,
The town engineer was at Schlott House Park. He did not make his way to the barn or Oakwood Knolls.
Yeah, he didn't go to the field trip. He had nothing to do with this
Yes.
part,
So
unfortunately.
if you'd like, we can have the town engineer go out. We confirmed it's not a load-bearing wall, similar to what we've done with the in-house renovations at the Emergency Services Building and at the Highway Garage. But of course, we can have engineers take a look at it. If you
well, I
feel
want to see a plan, Joey. I want to see something that gives me some level of confidence that this lift is going to work properly in either of the two facilities. I don't feel that level of confidence right now. Buying this lift right now to put it in storage so we can have a conversation about which building we're going to put in doesn't make sense to me.
It wouldn't be in storage by the time we get it, and in terms of manufacturing, shipping costs, I mean, probably by the time that we would come to a conclusion, which would probably be next week, by the next town board meeting, at least the order's been made, and we're not rushing to the end
If you
of the
can
year.
provide me with that information by the next town board meeting, certainly I'll feel more confident in spending $30,000. But right now, I do not feel comfortable spending $30,000 for a lift that we cannot definitively say where it's going to go right here, right now.
Okay.
That's my position.
We'll have the town engineer take a look at the facilities.
And I would also like to know a cost. If we're going to have to fortify these buildings in order to maintain a lift, I certainly want to know what that cost is too.
So we're working on that cost now. So we know what the electric cost is. We don't know what the cement cost is for the barn yet. And we don't know what the cost is for the Oakwood Knolls. So we need both those costs.
Yeah, so we will get that.
And again, this goes back, for me, this goes back a number of years, a number of administrations when we discussed the fact that we were going to utilize the mechanic in the highway department to maintain the vehicles and the equipment for buildings and grounds to save money. Now what has happened over the years is we've expanded this operation to the point where we now are requiring another facility to provide duplicative services, and that was never the intent of doing this. So as the numbers continue to add up, we have to keep our eye on the ball here, because now we have multiple mechanics that are doing similar tasks at two different locations in the town.
The workload's there, as we've explained at several meetings now. And again, I'm not going to continue to go into this. I think that this has been deliberated long enough. But again, there was a reason behind this. You can certainly ask both the highway mechanics about their workload. You can certainly ask the buildings and grounds mechanic about his.
I understand that, but again, we represent the taxpayers.
Of course,
So
and
I've
we all
had
do.
residents approach me saying, how can you possibly spend money on a lift? This was at Hannaford 2 days ago. How in the world can this town board spend $30,000 on a mechanical lift when you don't even know where it's going to go? This was in the parking lot of Hannaford
And
of
again,
a resident that is, wants to talk about this for 15 minutes while I'm trying to run in and get bread and milk.
When internally, we had the discussions, we had a plan, we had a proposal.
I understand that, but
And then everything changed. And then we had a field trip, which unfortunately you were not able to attend. But
listen.
much of this conversation was deliberated at this field trip.
That's moot. Ultimately, the taxpayers want to know these answers, and I can't give them the answer.
I mean,
So-
we've been deliberating about this and well,
Right. It's
We've
not
given the answers.
unfair to
Okay.
have a position where you're not supporting what others are supporting. So if you
Yes.
want to call the vote right now, feel free, but my concerns stand.
no, and I respect them. That's why I'm trying to engage you and give you as much information as possible, Councilman.
But to be fair, I agree with you that we have an engineer look at both buildings. and give his professional opinion back to them.
I don't think
I'm not a builder. I mean, I don't know if a roof is going to stay up or not stay up. There's holes in both buildings. What can I tell you? I would feel more comfortable if our engineer comes back and tells us what is needed to move forward.
Of course.
But from a safety point of view, and I understand what you're saying about people doing the same job in different departments, but from a safety point of view, I think it's important to have this lift also.
I'm not necessarily against the lift, but I got to be
know
able
you're
to
not.
answer basic questions
Yes,
about it when
I
a resident
I
asks me
understand.
questions. I don't have those answers, so how can I support it?
No, I understand. That's why
It
I
was
agree
provided.
that we have an
Joey,
engineer.
It was.
We'll have an
understand
engineer look at
that
it. No.
the information that was provided does not answer all my questions.
And this is what we try to get at every meeting, basically. No matter the proposal is, I would love to get everyone's input. And again, we do talk between town board meetings. So if you say, all right, tomorrow, let's say, Supervisor, I'd like X, Y, and Z.
Sure.
Anyone could do that. Anyone could do that.
And we do.
Yes, but then when we come to the meeting, now it's, oh, we got another thing, and another thing. And I appreciate that's deliberation.
That's called good
how-
government. That's what that's
Yeah,
called.
But good government is also talking internally and saying, Supervisor, and the acting supervisor of buildings and grounds, we'd like to have X, Y, and Z by the next meeting. Which every time that has been stated on this dais, we go back and get.
We don't have that information. We wouldn't have that information
this is-
tonight.
this is
We don't
new
know,
information.
we cannot agree on the location of this facility. That's the bottom line. We never came to consensus on where this was going to be. There's never been a full discussion on it.
So can we do two things? First thing is let's get the engineering work done.
Exactly.
And second thing, can we just figure out what location? So by the time we come to the next meeting, this is something we should have taken care of a while ago. We
I
need the
mean-
lift, and we just got to figure out a location. But let's get the engineering work.
And
Let's
the
make sure that,
cost, and whatever cost it's.
and whatever the
it may
cost
be.
associated to upgrade either one of the buildings to
That's
do what we
right,
have
to
to do,
accommodate
and
this.
we'll go from there.
But
This way we'll have all the,
But just to remind everyone, we did not leave that field trip at any location.
but we're not
until-
going to solve this tonight.
I know, but until we had a consensus, and we had 3 members of the town board that said this was a good location, and then by the next town board meeting, it changed. Councilman Cassell, you were obviously on the opposition to that, which is perfectly fine, but there were 3 members that said, yep, that's good, and then all of a sudden it changes. So how am I supposed to do good work? How are our department heads supposed to do good work and then provide the town board with answers to their questions when everything changes?
Well,
Because
that's
things
life.
change,
That's how,
because, as you said.
I'm
as
good
they
at adapting,
get
I'm really
Right, I
good
get
at
that,
that,
but
when
honestly-
something comes out left field, then
It's not
that's
left
a
field. Don't take it that way. There are residents that have concerns about this. I will tell you that. They're watching the meetings, and they're wondering why we're doing certain things, and I want to be able to have answers for those residents why we're doing things. Don't take it personally.
No, it's
This
not.
is something that we have an obligation to fiduciarily do, and we have to be able to explain, if we're going to spend $30,000, we can't say, well, we'll let you know where we're going to put it. To me, that's not the right way to do
And,
things. That's just my opinion.
I respect your opinion. I'm just saying, as the one that's here day to day, operating the day-to-day activities here, when I have employees that are currently using vehicle jacks to get underneath vehicles, which they've been
They
doing.
shouldn't be doing that.
The department head was doing it. This has been going on for the past 10, 15 years in that department, which is why we hired mechanics. So we have someone who's actually trained and certified and knows what they're doing for the first time in 15 years in that department. But that's been happening. When I am presented with that information, it is my job to come back to the town board and say, we have a legitimate safety issue. This is why we're proposing this. If the town board says we're not in favor of this, then I go back to the department head. It is what it is. It's over and done with. Town board has not endorsed this project, this concept. My job is to advocate for that, because I'm here day to day, and when we have employees presenting safety issues that have been going on for 15 years, and now I'm here, I'm not going to let that happen, and my job is to at least inform you folks, and you can make a decision. Again, this is not personal. I respect everyone's
Right, but
opinion.
I don't
This is
think you're
just
being
business.
accurate here. 15 years is not accurate, because within that time period, this work was being done at the highway department, okay?
No, it was not.
Yes, it was,
No, it was
Joey.
not.
The highway
Bill,
department
the
lift
super-
was being used for lifting vehicles from
Not every
buildings and
vehicle.
grounds.
Not every vehicle.
And those other vehicles were sent out to third-party vendors to be doing the work. So it's not fair to say for 15 years this has been going on. That's not accurate.
Well, I can bring in a room full of department employees saying that they were eating their lunch in a room while their department head was welding right next to them, or painting, or
Not
doing
15
other
years
work.
ago, that's for sure.
Over the course of that
No,
period of time.
that's not, Buildings and Grounds has been disbanded and rebanded within 15 years.
We mentioned that here tonight, yes.
So that said, with all due respect to my colleagues, I would appreciate more information, and I also would appreciate having a better plan before we spend $30,000 in taxpayer dollars on this item.
I'm comfortable with that.
But again, you have a motion, so.
Yep. There was a motion. Would anyone like to?
So do we want to table it until you get the,
Let's table it, please.
Okay. Who would like to make the motion to table?
I would like to table it
Moved by Councilwoman Bettina.
until we get the information from our engineer.
Second.
Second by Councilman Beal. All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Motion passes. Our final resolution and final piece of business for this workshop meeting here tonight is Resolution 2024-212, correspondence log. Do I have a motion?
I'll move it.
Second.
Moved by Councilman Casella, second by Councilwoman Bettina. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? None. Thank you very much. Motion passes. There is no further business to come before the town board, but I would like to note a historically important piece of legislation was just signed today by the governor in Dutchess County, affecting the town of Wappinger, and that was Melanie's Law. This town was affected by the tragic and horrific murder of Melanie Chianese a few years ago in the Rockingham Farms neighborhood. I have to give a special shout out to our county executive, Sue Serino, for her time as a state senator, our state senator, Rob Rollison, and our assemblyman, Anil Bepan, for championing this critical piece of legislation, Melanie's Law, which closes a crucial gap when it comes to restraining orders on domestic violence cases. And today, that legislation was formally signed by the governor of the state of New York and is now law here in the state. So a tragic, horrific incident that occurred here in this town fortunately now has some closure to the family as this loophole has now been closed. So just want to bring that up. So with that, there's no further business to come before the town board. No need for an executive session. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Move.
second?
Moved by Councilman Beal, second by Councilman Phillips. All in favor? Aye. Thank you very much, folks.